This is a permanent sign that came across, and everybody, I had people come by here all the time, and they're elated by it because it says one thing. It says, I love you. And the reason why I love this garden more than any other garden in the city is because most gardens in this city have an iron rod fence around it. This is the only garden that doesn't have that prison fence. But here, you're a part of this garden. You know, you're not used to meditating. You're not used to having things quiet, especially in an environment like that. You know, I mean, everything is noise 24/7. It was difficult at first to just sit still and to just quiet your mind, because you had to figure out what the heck the mind was also, you know. Silence, truthfully, is where God lives. If you listen, if you just stop, you can determine what direction, almost, where you're going to even go. In that environment, you have to portray an image to survive sometimes. And when you walk around with this false self, as Ray would talk about, the false self was something I learned to identify with. I mean, I didn't really know who the hell I was. We would meditate, and then Ray would sometimes get off his chalkboard and he would ask us questions. And then we would go around in circles and we would take turns, you know, and responding to the answer to the question. And then what I found out is that we're all pretty much alike, and that we all are striving for the same thing, but sometimes we're afraid to admit it, you know, to open up. And in that circle of opening up with different dialogues of different people, it even brought us closer together as a people. Because where I was supposed to hate this guy because he was white, or he was supposed to hate me because I was black, we seemed to have some commonality there, and it just brought us all together. It was beautiful. I walked up to this granite building, and I looked inside of the little yard that they had there. It wasn't a garden, it was just a bunch of weeds. The contrast and comparison doesn't go together. You know, you got weeds on the outside, but you're praying on the inside. So I stepped over the fence and took it upon myself and just started ripping out all the weeds to beautify the place. First thing I planted, I think it was canna lilies, and then I planted sunflowers. And if you notice sometimes that the sunflower, it drops its head and it bends over. It's almost like it's in full submission of the universe, of understanding God, as it's praying. One day someone dropped some rocks off at the garden. A guy, he'd been collecting them and he couldn't have them in his cell, so he put them in the garden. Something came to me and it just told me, hey, you know, I'm gonna leave a positive message, because it was basically all dirt at that time because I had ripped all the weeds out and turned over the soil. So I think I wrote something like, it is better to conquer yourself than to win 1,000 battles, which was a quote that I had heard somewhere else from one of the greats. And I put it down in rock. And then people came along and started reading it, and one message led to another message, and that went on for about almost 2 years. Yeah, it was a message a week, no matter if it was raining, if my hands were cold. If I didn't get that message down, those guys are going to run me off that yard. Garden is a very peaceful thing. Like, for instance, let's take the rose bush. The rose bush is a very beautiful bush, but if you don't prune it, it would just start withering and growing wild. We need to be pruned too. We have to prune stuff out of our lives and for us to grow, to develop, to become a part of more than what we even know we can be. If I could talk to the prisoners now, I would tell you, please, if you get that chance to get out that cell and go into centering prayer, I recommend that you go into that class more than any other class there. Because in all the other classes, you might develop other certain skills with your outer structure of your life. But with centering prayer, you structure your spiritual understanding of who you are. And you need to understand who you are before you touch down out here. Because if you don't come out here with the right frame of mind, and if you don't know when to pull back, and you don't know when you're false and your images are being thrown out there to project. I've seen guys that come out here with their egotistic images and find themselves right back in prison. I recommend very much that you take the time to develop who you're supposed to be and find out who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, then you're not going to even know nothing. So Centering Prayer, to me, it was one of the best programs, I believe, in that prison cell.